Alright guys, so I've had some questions on my hydroponic setup. This Dutch bucket system that I'm showing right here, I had to get this going in a hurry because I had tomato plants that were kind of going awry. And I still have more that are going awry, just not as awry as those were. So what I'm going to do is, I only have one more actual Dutch bucket. That's a Bato bucket, B-A-T-O. And I have a link for those in the description if that's what you want to do. But I also have a workaround that works just as well. And I've used it to make some other buckets. I can show you one of those here real quick. Might get a little shaky. So this little one right here, that is a piece of 4-inch drain pipe and a cap and a couple of elbows and a piece of PVC. I'll show you just what I did there. And that little thing I can put between these tomato plants and kind of maximize what I've got going here. So I'm going to take you outside and we will work on making some more Dutch buckets. Alright, welcome to my backyard. So I'm going to show you first, this is a standard Bato bucket. This down here, see if I can pop that out, is 2 elbows fit together, and those 2 elbows is what drains. It's got a little shelf down here on the bottom, and that little shelf sits over a pipe that I have running the length of the greenhouse. So this goes in here. It sits on the bottom, and basically all that does is establish a water level. The water level in this bucket stays at the bottom of these elbows. So that is a Bato bucket. This is Bato right there. And like I said, I'll have a link. And those are great. So before we go too far, let's set one of those up. Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, paint department. These are elastic top paint strainers. Not very expensive. You throw these in here. Make sure everything's kind of where you want it. This is my bag of perlite. Perlite can get a little dusty. Definitely going to want to do this outside. But very, very light. You want to fill that 3/4, not that full. That'll be fine after we get that washed down. So that's good. You're just going to get that all kinds of wet, and that perlite is what will support the plant. So I don't know if I put enough water in there for it to drain, but that's your Bato bucket. That's all set up, ready to set into the system. Okay, now a workaround. These buckets here, they came with either eggs or mayonnaise. From a restaurant I used to, eggs. Came with boiled eggs in them. From a restaurant I used to work in. I used them for gathering maple syrup for years, and I've gotten away from it. I made something else in my shop that was easier, more sanitary. These are terrible to store. So, tape measure, Sharpie. We need to measure up 1 5/8. 1.5 inches, 2 little lines. Approxo exactly. Alright? We are going to take a hole saw. This is my trusty drill. This is a 1 1/8 inch hole saw. And we are just going to drill a 1 1/8 hole. Proxo is actually 1 5/8 up from the bottom. And that number comes from how tall this little piece is. So we want to make sure there's no terrible burrs on there. Okay. And then we need to take one of these. This is a 3/4 inch silicone rubber grommet. This 3/4 inch silicone rubber grommet happens to absolutely perfectly fit this piece of 1/2 inch PVC. Okay? So, somebody asked me here not too long ago how I felt about plastics and food grade plastics. And honestly, you have to do your own research. PVC, you should not put in the microwave, nor should you put it in the... Oh, I missed that whole part, didn't I? So your little thing goes in there. It doesn't go in awful hard. You got to kind of expand it so that it goes out. Push it out to the perimeter. Get this a little bit wet and gently force it through. Okay, so now we have a piece of hose, 1/2 inch PVC, approximately 4 inches long. We have 2 1/2 inch elbows. One of those is going to go on the outside, pointing down. One of those is going to go on the inside, also pointing down. Okay, so that elbow on the inside doesn't touch the bottom. So that's exactly where we want it. So this, at this point, looks an awful lot like that one does, doesn't it? So now we take, this is a 4-gallon bucket, by the way. Now we take that same 5-gallon from Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, local paint store. We put that over there. And we grab our perlite. Fill that 2/3-ish full. Watch out for the dust. And now we can spray that right in there. Okay, we'll turn that like that. We'll turn this one like this. So you'll see now that this, let me make sure you'll see that this is draining out here. And that is draining out there. These two are functionally identical. This costs anywhere from $7 to $20. Depends where you get and how many you buy. This, the elbows, if you buy them individual, are 39 cents a piece. The hose was $5 or $6 for a 10-foot piece. So pennies. The gaskets, the whole 25 pack, I think, cost $10, so not 50 cents. And I had to buy this either way. I had to get the perlite either way. And you don't have to use perlite. You can use rocks. Get that off of there. So I didn't even bother cleaning up because I got to wash them all before I put them into the system. So these two, after I get them cleaned up a little bit, are ready to go and be put into the system that we've got running right now in there. So we are going to get these plumbed in, and I'll bring you along for that as soon as I'm ready. One other thing I wanted to show you, this is something that I came up with on my own. I actually saw it in a video and was able to replicate it. This is 4-inch drain line. This is a cap. They're just a couple of bucks a piece. I get them at Lowe's. It fits this single wall thin plastic drain pipe, and I do the exact same thing. I do use a larger hole saw to cut through the lid so that it gives me some room to fit that rubber grommet in there. But it's that same 4-inch piece of PVC, 2 elbows, one there, both of them are pointing down, and that's the ones that I have in between, and I use a 1-gallon paint strainer for these. Seems to work great. So this is what I have in between the tomato plants in there. So I'm going to go level a little bit of dirt and see about drilling a hole and getting these in place. See you in a bit. Okay, so I had already put in that 10-foot section. That's a straight 10-foot piece of 2-inch PVC plumbing pipe. Carries water in your house. I got it at Home Depot, Lowe's, one of those. So, and now I've drilled holes approximately every 10 inches apart. So at 10 inches I can put either these Beto buckets or these square buckets side by side, and they just are just fine. However, I do want to use some of these smaller ones. My tomato plants I think will get big enough where I won't want them every single one. So tomato plant, small leafy plant, try to get it set on sand more than stone, so that's good. I'm going to go with my last Beto bucket, and I have to make sure that gets set up. That's the bummer about the Beto bucket. This whole thing has to get... So you need to make sure that piece on the back goes right into where it's supposed to. So then I'm going to do another one of these 1 gallon, that's not a gallon, but size, and then I'm going to put another Beto bucket, or a homemade Beto bucket. That kind of excavated there. One of the great things about the homemade version of these buckets is I can adjust how far out that is. So if I want it further away from the line for whatever reason, I can do that. I think I'm going to be just fine with it all the way in like that. Keep it back out of the way. Alright, so that's it for the setup. I have to run the water lines that are going to continue this and put some plants in it. Okay, show you what I have to make and then we'll make it. This little guy has a whole bunch of, that's hard to see, has a whole bunch of sisal twine wrapped around him, and that, if we follow that down, goes to tomato plants. So we have to support our tomato plants. and that is how I intend to do it. I have the tomato clips so that the tomato clip holds the twine, and then that pulls down, and that's what supports our tomato plants. So you can buy these if you're a greenhouse supply maker or whatever. We're gonna make them. All right, so this is my pattern, if you will. Drew that myself. Don't know if you could tell. So anyway, so I am going to be using a pair of, these are called Lineman's pliers. They are just wide on the tip, kind of hefty. You can get these for like 10 bucks at Walmart. So I need this end to be round. So I'm just going to put it over here. You guys see? No. Oh, of course you can't see. Put it over here. Grab the end. Grab the other end. There we go. So now we got that. I'm going to come down about here and bend straight up. Oh, not straight up, but you get the idea. Then I'm going to come back a little bit, and I'm going to make that go right back down on itself. This piece I need to be about as long as my hand-ish. A lot of ish here. I'm going to fold that back up, and then we're going to turn this side and fold that back down. Need to close this one up a little bit. Okay. And I want this to come down far enough so that I can make it a loop. And same pair of pliers, just going to cut it off. Okay, so that's what we end up with. And the reason we need that is so that we can take our sisal twine, twisted sisal twine. Okay. I'm going to tie a knot on the end of our twine. Slip that over there. I am just going to wrap this up, I don't know, 20 times. That looks good. Okay. When I get it wrapped around there as many times as I like, I'm going to wrap it around that hook part. I'm going to hang it up from the ceiling. And then I'm going to let this fall to the ground. Trim it generously. So, all widened out there. So, now I can take this, put it by tomato. So, we only have 2 more of those to make. I'll get this bent around here. Make that first bend around a pole or something. That kind of gives you a nice, even, smooth shape. So, doesn't have to be rocket surgery. It's designed to be a nice, easy, make at home. So there we go. One more. Alright, so now that we've got our Dutch buckets set up, I brought them in here, I plumbed them in. I need to transplant this mess I have over here. So go ahead. This is tomato plants that we transplanted into hydroponics from started seed. and this has gone awry. They were all like this size when they started. If you look through my other videos, you can see them. So this is incredibly gone wrong. So we have this is an Earliana, and we are going to pull it from this hydroponic system, and we are going to put it in the Dutch buckets. So root structure seems to be okay. I have some rocks up here, I'll dump those out. I cannot take this out of that net pot without hurting the plant, so I'm going to leave it in. I need to dig a hole in here as close down to the bottom as I can. I want the plant to be in the water just like it has been so far in its growth cycle. So remember, the buckets have maybe 3/4 or 1.5-inch-ish of liquid in the bottom. I need this to go down there. So once I get down a fair amount, I can get my roots in there. I'm going to have to cut off lower leaves, suckers, more lower leaves. It's going to look like I butchered the thing. We will get that down into this bucket about as far as we can possibly get it. Take some of the perlite back from this other bucket. And the perlite will pack in a little bit. So as soon as we get that in there where we're happy with it, situated, we have the tomato clips, and we're going to bring our string down. We made those holders for. Watch the suckers. And we are going to put one all the way down below the first, or I guess the first leaf that I left on it. That one's broken. Bring that around and clip it. And I want to do a single stem, so I'm going to try to put a second one on up higher. I'm positive I'm not going to like where it is, where it ends up, but at least I will have it supported and I can reposition it. These aren't these clips you can take off and put back on as many times as you need. I'm going to wrap that around there a little. Hope that helps. Second one on. Alright, there we go. So this is a Earliana, like I said, and we will let it go. I'm probably going to have to prune this a little bit more greenery back so that the kale that's in between has a chance, but it's all transplanted. I'll do one more. So this tomato is very clearly not nearly as large as the other one. These were put in later, and it's got a nice root structure. I had to put a little piece of cotton on there because it was actually too small when we got it put in the system to reach the water. So that's how much growth we've got, and I don't recall exactly when that was, but to make sure the roots get all the way down to the water. You can pack that all the way down around there. That is about the size they ought to be transplanted at. That makes this whole operation just a wee bit easier. We'll Bring this down. Okay. There you go. Principe Borghese. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but can't be that far off. And there we go. Alright, so we've got our tomato strings here. And bring them all the way down here. It's a great time to do some maintenance on your tomatoes. Make sure that you are not, make sure that you don't have any suckers on here and all of that. So these little guys just close, they clip together. Like 100 of them was just $5 or $6. So I'm going to put him here, put him underneath the branch. So I'm going to put him underneath that branch. Got a hairy kind of plant here. I'm going to put that like that. Oh, a little less. Okay. And that's all there is to it. So that is the first. And as the plant grows, I will go ahead and every now and again put a new one on. Look at the size of that. I want to say that's a sucker. That's definitely a bloom. My shingle height. What am I doing here? This is Canner Howell. This is supposed to be a great canning variety. So again, put that around there. That's going to give the tomato the support it needs. Keep on growing. So that is a sucker. This sucker up here and that sucker there, I'm going to wait just a minute and I will take those off when I'll take those off and I'm actually going to stick them right in dirt. It's like free plants. Right down the line here. Okay. So those are supported for now. Like I said, I'm going to go through and do some maintenance. We've got some, we've got some suckers that I can trim off and actually make plants out of. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I was inside. I'm sorry. Now I'm outside, editing this video because today's not a day I will walk around outside. And I noted that I never showed you the rest of this. We are talking about the Dutch bucket system still. So I'll give you a little bit of how things are right now versus when I filmed that. So I have a 5-gallon reservoir because my wife stole my 17-gallon reservoir. We had chickens come and the chickens needed a place to be, the less strong ones, and she chose my bucket, so I lost my bucket. So I just grabbed what I had. A 5-gallon Home Depot bucket is what I have it draining into. That same little pump that I used on the hardware store hydroponics, the towers, that's the same pump that's down in there. I do have an air stone in this system, so I constantly have, this being aerated, which is cool. Let that go. And this black line is the one that's coming up off of the pump. Comes up here, I put an elbow in, and I come across, and we will search through the foliage, and you can see that there is, maybe you can see if I can get rid of this top, there's a fitting right there. That fitting goes into that 1/4-inch line. I showed you that on the hardware store hydroponics video. I used the tool that's for the 1/2-inch landscape pipe and just put that in there, poked it in, attached the 1/4-inch pipe, and then we can follow that down into the plant. And I just used some scrap irrigation 1/2-inch line, and I stuffed that 1/4-inch line down into it, and then I forced that down in the ground. What that does is it helps eliminate algae growth up here. I need to add a little bit more perlite to this because it's wicking up. When I started the system, I got that all wet, and that's where the algae is coming from. So that line runs all the way down to the other end. I just tied it to the front edge of this shelf, so when we go to flip it back up in the spring, that's all set. And everything drains back in that white 2-inch line that I put on the bottom. So it comes back through that 2-inch line and drains right back into my bucket. I do have a hole cut in the lid on this so it's not left open all the time. Kind of working with one hand because the camera's in the other. So that just kind of clips over everything. All the lines come out of one spot. And that's it. So that is the plumbing part of this system. Hey, if you guys have been following along with the other videos, these are there's a kale there, a kale there. These are not getting the amount of sunlight they need because I have people that have ordered plants and haven't picked up yet. And as soon as those are gone, those will get more light. So these kales are doing fantastic. That's Jacinto or dinosaur's kale. I have blooms on quite a few of my tomato plants. Hoping you guys can pick up that. Yeah, there we go. So there's blossoms on there. All of the intermediary plants are doing fantastic. This kale is Red Russian. And if you haven't had Red Russian kale, that curly blue stuff, I don't know why everybody raves about it because that's horrible as compared to the Red Russian. The Red Russian is a sweet, it's really, really good. The leaves on that are tore up, but that's my fault. Moving stuff around. Let's see more blooms. We're in a greenhouse, so you actually have to pollinate those yourself. So to pollinate those, you come up and just vibrate the plant a little bit, and that helps spread the pollen around where a bee would visit multiples. So all kinds of blossoms on those. Our flowers doing really well, and this is the 1.5 first. I don't know, maybe that's the first crop coming out of that. They are about ready to come out, so that's pretty full. Having a little bit of problem with shading down towards the bottom, but like I said, we still have a lot of plants in here for sale. And this other one that's more bok choy at the top, we've already harvested that whole column, and some of those, the kale that was in there is what's in these pots behind me, because you don't need to replant the whole plant. You pick off what you need for that day and let it grow, and it'll just keep on going. So that's cool. And tomatoes and vining petunias that we still have for sale. So gonna back on out of here and go add this to the video. And today happens to be Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day, mothers out there. This is part of the ones that were going awry I talked about at the beginning of this video. These are Amish paste tomatoes. and they are so big I can't get them out of the system without destroying the system or killing the plants. So I have tied them to the ceiling, and I'm gonna let them go right where they are. If I need to trim them back, I will, but right now they're looking really great, lots of blooms, so I'm good with that. All right, T-Rex out.